Okay, calm down. You got nervous, man. You got nervous, man. Okay, calm down.
Hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. And you will see that we're doing something a little bit different today because it's not just me on stage, and you'll understand why that is shortly. I'm Katie Halper. This is the Katie Halper Show, and we have an amazing show for you tonight. We're going to be speaking during the second half with John Mearsheimer, but during the first half, we have two amazing guests as well. Susan Abulhawa, who is a novelist and activist, and she's been on the show before. I highly recommend her novels and her writing. And we are also speaking to a brave doctor, a very impressive person, and his name is Dr. Dhiaa Daoud. And I'm just trying to figure out where that noise is coming from. I thought it was from him, but it's not from him. Anyway, because of tech issues, we are starting all together at once, and it's a boring story, but basically we're doing something new. We had some audio issues, and this weird sci-fi thing happened where where Dr. Daoud could only hear Susan and not me. So if that continues, Susan's going to be like interlocutor, and we'll have to ask questions through her. And the reason things are a little weird tech-wise is because Dr. Daoud is on a flotilla. He is one of the people trying to break the siege. And we're so appreciative of that and that activism and that tireless spirit. And so we're going to talk to him for a little bit, and then we're going to just talk to Susan and then just talk to Mearsheimer. So welcome, Susan, and welcome, Dr. Daoud.
Hi, thanks, Katie. It's good to be here.
Of course. Let's see. Dr. Daoud, can you hear me?
So Leah, Katie speaking. She's asking if you can hear her. I guess you still can't hear her. So I'll convey your words.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
I appreciate it. Hi, Katie. How are you doing? I know I can't hear you, but it's really nice to be in your show.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for coming. I wanted to ask you, to start off, what motivated you to take part in this flotilla and what your aims are in taking part in this flotilla?
So she's asking what motivated you to take part in this flotilla and what your aims are in taking part. And also, I forgot to tell you, she made this really lovely intro about you.
That's awesome.
Very brave doctor.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Katie. So, honestly, what motivates me is what's happening in Gaza right now. A genocide has been going on over there for 2 years. Imprisonment of a whole entire population for almost 20 years. This is something unheard of, and then also occupation over the past 80 years. The whole world is in shock about what's going on over there in Gaza. The entire world is seeing this as a I would say as a disaster of our entire, like we've never witnessed something like that in our entire history, where an entire population is stripped from all of their humanity, of all of their basic human rights, the rights of having water, electricity, food, being killed every single day. I've been there in Gaza in 2024. And when the genocide happened, and then I witnessed horror stories. I would never forget the screams of the babies and the dead bodies, and then I'll be honest with you, it's just things that unconscionable. And it's my duty as a physician and as a human being to really help the weak, the vulnerable, and above all, my people, the Gazan people. I'm originally from Gaza. My mother was born before even the occupation, 1943. My father was a refugee who was an Nakba survivor. He was 3 years old when that happened. He traveled with his mother, which is my grandma, from Jaffa all the way to Gaza. And I remember telling me some stories when I was a little kid. And then I never believed these stories because they were just like, like things that nobody can really imagine them. Like, I'll be honest with you. She told me a story that she once, um, you know, had my dad drink her urine because there was no water on the way. Yeah, it's. I mean, I thought that my grandma was like, getting, Alzheimer or something like that. I thought like my grandma is like, saying stories like that doesn't exist. But when I saw the genocide that is happening right now, I really believe every single one of them. This genocide has been happening to the Palestinian people over the past 80 years, and then it's nonstop. And then we want the whole world to share this great cause, the cause of the Palestinian people, the rights for the Palestinian people for self-determination, the rights for the Palestinian people to live a normal life that me and you and everybody else is living. My the people in Gaza are just like have been experiencing, mass killing, mass starvation, destruction, massive displacement of 2 million people, and then it's ongoing. Despite all countries calling this a genocide, all experts, all organizations, the ICC, the ICJ, everyone. And yet, the international community is just silent about this. The entire countries are just, not doing anything, and still dealing with the occupation and dealing with also Israel as a normal country, and instead of a lunatic country that lost their mind and then just killing everybody, including the kids. Katie, you have no idea about the things that I've seen over there, and in the kids that I've seen over there is just like almost 99% of the casualties that were all children. I remember this child, that was I said that on social media many times. I was in the middle of a mass casualty, and then all of a sudden I saw this child. After we resuscitated everybody in the room, I saw a little child was left in a counter, and like, like literally a countertop. So in the left, I looked over there on the left of my side, and I see this countertop, and I see a little baby, 5 months old, and he's gasping for air. So I started screaming, "Did anybody see this baby?" And then because it was chaotic, nobody was hearing me. So I started screaming louder, "Did anybody see this baby?" And then one of my colleagues told me, "Yes, I saw him." And it's an unsurviving injury. And then I looked at that baby, Katie. That baby is such a little angel. I mean, like a true angel, despite all of his bruises in his face and skull. I went there and I just held his hand, and then I looked at him, and I'm like, what did this baby do to humanity? What did this baby did to Israel? What did he do to anybody? Like, to the world? It's just, his only issue was one thing, that he was from Gaza. It's very sad. And then I held his hand, like, and he was just like, that kid died by himself on a countertop in the ER, no family around him, not even, healthcare workers around him to attend him because of the number of mass casualties around us. So imagine this, like happening in any part of the world. I always ask myself, what did the Gazan people do to deserve this? What did they do? Like, what kind of thing that they did to deserve that? Not including many other stories, like, the hospital there was a mess, was 35,000 people. They were refugees, and I was working in between the refugees, and then inside the ER, like people cooking in one side, and people, like, just walking like a market. And then, the whole entire situation was a disaster. I consider myself like as a litmus paper of the society, as an emergency medicine doctor, because I'm the first impact of the society. I hear them, I listen to them, they tell me their stories, and then their stories are horror stories. So, what motivates me is a sad thing that is happening to the Gaza people. Is like one of the worst disasters in history.
I wanted to ask you, well, first of all, thank you so much for everything that you do, and I'm so sorry for everything you go through. I wanted to ask you also to talk about something that we've heard a lot about, and I know that you witnessed, which is people being operated on without anesthesia.
She's asking about the people being operated on without anesthesia.
Yeah, yeah. There's many cases where we had so many children, like almost all of them. We were just like literally sitting in the ER, and then we're just like like I had one time. I'm just going to share this story with you to tell you like how horrible of a story these are. Like I had like one lady with her half ankle gone, another lady with a big gigantic hole in her thigh, and then they're just screaming in pain, and we just don't have anything to give them. We can in a regular hospital, I will immediately intubate them so that I can control the patient vital signs and control their suffering, because eventually they're going to go to the OR. But unfortunately, because of lack of equipments, lack of ventilators, if I intubated them, I won't be able to ventilate them because there are no mechanical ventilators. So, these, unfortunately, these patients are left to scream for a whole entire like days and nights. Is just like unbearable, unbearable. And I'll be honest with you, like these screams are just like, this is something that you'll never be able to take out of out of your head. And then, one time I had a little child. He had a massive degloving injury to his scalp, and in the middle of mass casualties, there's no like it's not like, okay, we're gonna send him to this section or the other section of the hospital. You just have to deal with it. And then luckily, I asked my wife to really give me. She's a dentist, and I asked her to give me as much as possible of anesthesia because I knew about that. I had close to 3 bags of anesthesia with me, and sure enough, I used almost like maybe 2 bags of these, and then I'm talking about 50 pounds each. And then I anesthetized him, but somebody like him, he needs like proper care. But I did his suturing for his massive degloving injury. For half of his scalp was degloved. And I'm sorry for mentioning all of these gruesome stories, but I just want the world to hear that this is happening in Gaza, and every single day until now. What I did was in 2024, but it's happening until now. All of my colleagues in Gaza are just telling me that there's nothing changed. And I started suturing this child, and then while I'm suturing him, he was just screaming, and I just gave him everything I can, of the anesthesia that I have, just local anesthesia. And unfortunately, he started screaming and crying and all of that. And then something unusual happened. He started reciting Quran. The Gaza people are really religious people, and then it's just like insane how they're going through this, and then they're still keeping their faith, and they're still just a little child, I would say a 10-year-old. And then this 10-year-old started reciting Quran, and then I said, you know what, you have the most beautiful voice, I want you to keep reciting Quran. And then he's still reciting Quran until I finished suturing him. I mean, like I don't know like where to start, Katie. I really don't. Like, how is the world silent about this? How is the world seeing this? And I'm sure you've seen that. I'm sure the audience have seen so many stories and on YouTube, and have seen the pictures and the images. But part of me being on this flotilla ship who's going to Gaza is just to tell the world, you cannot stay silent. You cannot stay silent on this. It's unimaginable. I am just in shock. I can't believe that the whole entire world is just watching this like it's like a Game of Thrones, or what? Like, like what are we guys watching? Or like even the other flotilla, the Samud flotilla, who was abducted by the Israeli the other day, a few days ago. And in none of the other countries other than Italy and Mexico moved. And it's just insane how the world is so silent about these atrocities that are being inflicted by these poor, kind, best people that you will ever see in your life. The people of Gaza, Katie, if you go to Gaza, they will take you from one house to another, feeding you every single day, taking care of you, making sure you're just, like treated like a royalty, treated like a queen. And instead, like, you are doing all of this to them, and they're all saying the same thing. What have we done to deserve this? Why is the whole entire world is so silent about this? And in like, unfortunately, like, like I said, like, we're trying over here in this flotilla to revive hope for them, to tell them that no, not all people have forgotten you. People like you, Katie, people like Susan, and like a lot of the healthcare workers who went to Gaza and in health, and in a lot of people who are donating money and energy and time so that they can help them, are really like helping a lot. But we have to put our efforts together so that we can channel it properly, so that we can get out of this horror situation. I'm going to tell you this story what before like I finish this. One time, like, part of me being an emergency medicine physician, I'm always curious. I'm always like trying to make sure that there's some sort of like hope somewhere. So they brought like few mass casualties from one single house, like one single house. And in that house, um, like maybe two victims survived. And they brought me a big bag, and then I thought, oh, maybe there's a dead body. I could that they didn't hear their breath sounds, or they didn't hear the heart sounds or anything like that. So I opened the bag, and all what I saw is parts of bodies, arms, legs, intestines, a head that is squished in a square. It's just like it's like, and I was just in complete shock, like this is insane. One time, Katie, I had a mass casualty, all babies, like not like like a baby and a woman and all of that. No, all babies, probably five or six babies, and they were all burned, third-degree burn, stunned, looking like in like in a like a shock, like what happened. And then they're all like shivering. And then I had we established communication with our group before when we came in. So we called for a mass casualty, called for all of the healthcare workers to come right away to the ER. And then even the ICU team came, because they were just like the scene was unbelievable. And then we try to intubate them. While we're intubating them, you have no idea how difficult it was to intubate them with the minimal supply of things that they have nothing. They have no videos, no video camera intubation where we can use the cameras to intubate them in these difficult situations. We're using like just old techniques. I'm laying on the floor, by the way, everything's on the floor. I was laying on the floor trying to intubate them, and then we managed, to intubate some of them. And while I was, standing in the ER, I just had a little bit of like something I've never seen, I've never witnessed in my life. I'm used to situations like that, but I had some detachment from reality. Like I was like looking around me like it was a dream, like a nightmare. And then my colleague like looked at me, and he was like, are you okay? Are you okay? Because he looked at me, I was just like in a different world. And then I was looking at him, and I saw his mouth moving, but I was unable to hear him. And then like, and then he held me and he shook me, and he's like, are you okay? And then I said, yes, I'm okay. So I finally came back to my senses. We intubated all of the babies. We sent them up to the ICU. We called all of the international community through Al Jazeera, through all of the outlets, and to come and take these babies to a safe haven, because we knew that they're not going to make it because because the hospital was extremely dirty. And then sure enough, nobody replied to us and they all died.
I'm so sorry.
That's what's happening in Gaza. That's
and
why we're here. That's why we as much as every single time I say there's no hope in humanity, there's no hope in what we're doing. I look at the world, after Gaza, and then I just look at it like everything in my life was dim. Like nothing makes me happy, nothing makes me excited, nothing makes me, not because I'm depressed, it's because I feel like I lost hope in humanity. Like when you see these things, not only me, like I know people are seeing these things because the people of Gaza are videotaping their death. I know everybody have seen these videos. They're videotaping their death. And in the middle of that, you have the healthcare workers that were trying to send a message to them that we're with you. And in this flotilla, the conscience flotilla has only medics and journalists so that we can tell the people we are with you. The journalists who are dead over there, we are with you. We are with your family. We are with all of the journalists who have burnout. We are trying to raise attention that this genocidal regime is trying to obscure the truth and is trying to kill the truth and preventing the journalists from doing their job, which is spreading the truth that this genocidal regime is committing a genocide in Gaza. And then that's what exactly they're doing. And then not only that, we're trying to send a message to the healthcare workers over there. They're suffering from, who are suffering from burnout, that our hearts with you. You are the true heroes, not us. You are the true heroes. I'm trying to tell them that I love you, and it was a true honor of my life to work side by side by you. I remember this doctor, Katie. His name is Dr. Hamdan. Dr. Hamdan was like a top-notch doctor, top-notch, the best doctor you'll ever see. Very kind, very light-hearted, despite all of this destruction and despite all of this horror that he's seen every single day for years. Despite all of that, he still has a smile on his face. He still treats his patient well. He still helps all of his patients. He lives in the ER with his family. He receives a phone call from the IDF, from the IOF, telling him, if we come to the hospital, we are going to kill you and kill your entire family. So this is a doctor who sacrificed all of his life so that he can become a doctor to help people. And then when the time of truth comes in and he's still helping his people, they come in and threaten him and tell him, we are going to come and kill you if we find you in the hospital. You know why, Katie? Because they don't want him to be there, because they want the entire population to be displaced. They want the entire population to die out of epidemics, which hit them very badly over there. When I was standing in the ER, I can see the people yellow from hepatitis A. You can literally point at which one has hepatitis A. You can see the chicken pox everywhere. You can see scabies, you can see head lice, and then we don't have medications for them. We don't have medications for chicken pox, and we don't have, for head lice or for scabies, simply because this genocidal regime, again, has prevented medical supplies, equipment, every single thing that you can think of that will help them to survive. That's what's
So
happening in Gaza, Katie.
I'm so sorry for this, and thank you so much for talking to us. I wanted to ask you as a final question, what it is that you expect to experience from the IDF, and how you're preparing for that.
So she's asking what you're expecting to experience from the IDF and what you're doing to prepare.
Well, it's not what we're expecting. What's happening right now. What's happening right now is we have a bunch of drones on top of us watching us. We're pointing at them one by one, and the activity is very high. And we're expecting an abduction at any time soon. We are right now in the international water. We have the right to be in the international water. We are civilians carrying medications, and then we're trying to supply to give them to the Gaza people. We're here just to we're here as just just human beings. We're not a threat to anybody. We're not doing anything illegal. We're not doing anything unusual. We just have medications, activists, journalists, and healthcare workers. We're just coming to Gaza so that we can be with them, help them as healthcare workers, tell the people that we are unable to go to Gaza because this genocidal regime has been prevented us from going to Gaza. I have many coworkers who tried to go to Gaza so many times. I have been denied. I have so many coworkers who want to help and relieve the burned out healthcare workers and they have been denied. We have a crisis over there in Gaza, and they're preventing us from bringing any medical equipments, any medications. There's nothing there. Even if I go to Gaza, there's nothing to do, Katie. I'll be honest with you. Before this flotilla happened, or during this time, I would say like within the vicinity of last week, I received an invitation to go to Gaza with one of the organizations in the United States. And at the same time, I received this invitation to go on the flotilla. I didn't go. I didn't go to Gaza because I didn't see any kind of of uh, of a thing that I can do for the Gazan people. There's nothing to work with. There's nothing. We yesterday we spoke to the to Al Auda hospital, trying to do some outreach, telling them we're coming for you. Try to give them some hope. And then these people, Katie, oh my God, they're just the most compassionate, the most like they have unusual resilience. They have unusual hope in them, something that you only can see in Gaza. And then they told it, and I asked them, like, do you guys operate in Al Auda hospital? And they said, oh, yes, we do operate there. We're very excited. We have one surgeon who's doing all surgeries. He's doing vascular surgery. He's doing orthopedic surgery. He's a general surgeon. He's doing all gynecology surgery. He's doing all kinds of surgeries. And when we asked him why don't you? And he's burned out. And we asked him why you don't have more surgeons. And they said, well, because the rest of the surgeons are either in prison or are dead. So this is the healthcare system in Gaza, and then the rest of the surgeons who are like, for example, in Al Shifa or other hospitals, they're unable to come because it's very dangerous for them to come. Extremely dangerous. The people over there in Gaza, they're risking their life every single day. Have you seen that medic who was standing in the hospital and he was shot in the head by a quadcopter? What did this guy do to you guys? What did he do? What did he do to the world? What? What?
Yeah.
It's just very sad. I mean, I just don't know, like, when the humanity is going to move. Like, when are you going to do something about it? And I ask myself, and before I ask everybody else, I'm not better than you are or anybody else in the world. I'm just saying, like, if we don't move right now, Gaza is at high risk of being exterminated. Not only, like, displaced, the whole entire population is at severe, significant risk of being exterminated.
Well, can you hear me at all now, or you still can't hear me? You still you can't hear me. Okay.
I'm sorry, Katie. I think we lost Susan.
Yeah.
No,
she's
sorry, I'm
back.
here. She's asking if you can hear her. I'm assuming not.
Yeah, he couldn't. Yeah. Well, this has been amazing, and just please thank him and say that we'll be in touch, and we will get updates from you so we can tell the audience at what's happening. But Susan, of
I
course,
apologize, but I don't hear anybody,
She's saying this has been
and I don't hear
amazing.
you, Susan. I apologize. But if you would
Okay.
like, you can, if you guys can hear me, you can type your question in the chat box, and I'll be able to answer it for you. And then,
I think
and it's possibly because of my internet connection in the flotilla.
we'll just we'll bring you back on another time.
Yes, I can see this.
We'll be in touch. Just so that
Katie, I can write. You can write in the private chat area, and Dr. Daoud can see that.
okay, great. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, thank
yeah.
you very much, Katie. I appreciate you
Okay.
having us on your show. I wish you
Thank
the best, everyone. And then please follow us on the tracker, see where the ship is, and then if anything happened to us, I want the entire world to move with us. I want everyone to do something about this genocide that is happening. Thank you very much, guys.
you so much. Wow. Well, thank you so much. We're pretty behind because we didn't anticipate how long that would be. Maybe I can have Susan, do you want to you and Dr. Mearsheimer can talk at the same time a little bit, and then how does that sound? And then you and I can talk more maybe after one-on-one.
Whatever you want to do, Kate.
Okay, just because Dr. Mearsheimer was going to join at 7:45, and we obviously made time for to talk to the great Dr. Daoud. So maybe I'm gonna ask you one question. Here's what we're gonna do. Brad, can you text? I'm gonna text you something, Brad. Okay. 1 second here. Oh, this is a very innovative show. 1 second.
I have to say, in all the years we've been doing this, Susan, this was the first time we've ever had a Katie guest conduit, and you did an outstanding job.
It was a little bizarre that he could, the selective.
I cannot explain that.
Yeah. I've never seen that before.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we are going to be speaking of conduit. So I'm going to have Brad communicate with Dr. Mearsheimer. I'm going to ask you a question, Susan, and then we will find out which way we want to go, whether it's going to be 3 of us talking or 2 of us talking, 3 of us first, then 2 of us. Anyway, lots of options out there.
3 of us have a conversation whenever he comes on. You and I can talk when he comes on, and then maybe I can leave a little early if you want to just talk to him.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, just to interject that, Dr. Mearsheimer, if you just look in the private chat on the right side of your screen, I'll just write to you there.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'll ask you a question, and then we'll have a group question, and then I'll have some one-on-one with Dr. Mearsheimer. I think that would be great. So Susan, that was very hard to hear. I guess I want to ask you, the first question I want to ask you was actually about what your thoughts are right now as we are commemorating the 2-year anniversary. I don't even know if we can call it that, the 2-year mark of October 7th.
What are my thoughts on the?
What are you feeling? Is this what kind of day is this for you? Like, are you, sorry, let me just, you know what? I'm gonna ask another question that I prepared. Apologies. This has been a very,
I'm not trying to complicate it for you, but I know
it's an open-ended question. I was trying to get questions.
Every day has been horrific, right? Today it's just, they've ramped up the propaganda. I had to, once again, we're having to hear these these sensational stories that have been debunked over and over and over of beheaded babies. Even Netanyahu was going on talking about, Hamas burned babies and beheaded men and women. I mean, it's just a lie. And everybody in the mainstream, whether it's politicians or media personalities, keep repeating it. And either they know they're lying, or they don't haven't read, they don't read. And I don't know which is worse. This just kind of this sinister mendacity or
or ignorance. But yeah, and the other and also the other lies too, which I mean, I'm sure this just exemplifies the tweet by Mamdani on this day about Hamas killing 1,100 people. And again, it's like, get your facts straight. I mean, 2 years on, and they still don't have their facts straight. And there have been reports, there have been studies about that day. Although still has never been an investigation, right? Despite all this October 7th, not a single actual independent investigation has been conducted. But what we do know is that that all of those burned out those cars that they parade as crimes of Hamas, all of the burned out houses, that was all conducted primarily by Israeli Apache helicopters. There were 28 of them at least that had to reload their ammunition at least once. And I think they contain like 21,000 rounds of fire, and we know that they killed at least hundreds, according to Haaretz. We know that Israel initially said it was, I think the first estimate was 2,200, then they said 2,000, and then they downgraded it to 1,200, and then it downgraded to 1,139. And then they just kind of rounded it up to 1,200, and that has been the narrative. So I can't stand these factual inaccuracies, which, upon which our genocide is predicated. I mean, these sensational stories of beheaded babies, of mass rape, and it's just, I mean, these are the things that manufactured popular consent for the just wanton slaughter of Palestinians throughout Gaza, in a display of savagery that is, and sadism that is truly unprecedented in human history, as far as I understand.
Yeah, well, this is a perfect, I think, transition, because I'm going to bring on the great Dr. John Mearsheimer to talk with the great Susan Abulhawa. It'll be a meeting of great minds. And I've actually spoken to you. Hello, Dr. Mearsheimer. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Mearsheimer. It's a pleasure.
Hello, Susan. Hello, Katie.
Thank you so much for joining. And, this is actually something that you spoke about once on the show, which is about the Hannibal Directive. And as you pointed out, this is something that, you could see covered by Israeli media in a way that you don't see covered by Western media. And I was just curious what you, kind of piggybacking on what Susan just said, what your thoughts on what we know and what we don't know about what happened on October 7th. And if have been any updates since you and I spoke about this last, which was, I think, a year ago.
Well, I think we have a pretty good sense of what the general picture looks like. I think everything that Susan said is correct. And I think we don't know the number of Israelis who were killed by the Israeli forces. And you want to remember, it was not just the Hannibal Doctrine. The fact is that the Israelis got caught completely by surprise, and they did not have a very good backup plan. So what they did was they rushed in massive firepower, and they used that firepower to attack Hamas and the other Palestinian forces that had moved into Israel proper. And they killed a significant number of people, not with the Hannibal Doctrine, but just with all that firepower that was brought to bear against Hamas and other Palestinians who were intermingled with all sorts of Israelis. Then there's the whole issue of the Hannibal Doctrine, because as we know, the Palestinians were bent on taking many of their captured Israelis back to Gaza. And the Hannibal Doctrine calls for killing those people before they get there. So some Israelis were killed as a result of the Hannibal Doctrine. And then you want to remember, on top of all that, it's consistent with international law for Hamas to try to break out of the concentration camp and to engage Israeli military forces in combat, which means they're going to kill some of them. So the fact that they killed Israeli soldiers is not a case of murder. Now, there were clearly Israeli civilians who were murdered. I'd be willing to bet in the final analysis, however, that Hamas did not murder many of those Israeli civilians. But be that as it may, whoever murdered those civilians, and in my mind created a war crime, committed a war crime. But I think that most of the Israelis who were killed were either soldiers, who I think are legitimate targets, or they were civilians who were killed by the Israeli forces. I think you cannot underestimate how many Israelis were killed when all that firepower was brought to bear. And if you look at a lot of the pictures and you listen to what happened, it's quite clear that those Apache helicopters really wreaked havoc on everything that was down on the ground. And of course, that included Israeli civilians. So I think we have a pretty good sense of what happened. Now, is that reported in the Western media? As Susan was saying before, of course it isn't. The stories that you hear in the Western media, are basically a reflection of Israeli propaganda. I want to make one final point about this. What's also quite stunning about this whole issue is that nobody talks about why there was a breakout. Nobody talks about the fact that this was a concentration camp and what was being done to the Palestinians was abhorrent. And of course, there was going to be a breakout from that concentration camp at some point. The Israelis like to portray this as if it were a bunch of Nazis, as if the Palestinians were the second coming of the Third Reich. And what happened on October 7th is much like what happened in the Holocaust. This is a ridiculous argument. What the Germans did to the Jews is completely different than what the Palestinians did to the Israelis. The Palestinians were the victims. They were in this concentration camp, and you had a breakout on October 7th, hardly surprising. And this is not to excuse the murdering of civilians that took place at the hands of Palestinians. I'm opposed to killing civilians for sure. But again, that I think is just part of the story. You have a much more complicated story at play here. And the more you talk in detail about what happened, the clearer it becomes that Israel bears a great deal of the responsibility for what happened that day.
Right. Yeah.
I just want to add something that, for this day is clearly consequential. It's a world order potentially changing a day. And I don't think it's enough for us to have just a sense of what happened. I think it's important for us to know exactly what happened as much as possible. Was there a stand down order? Why did it take them so long to respond? Did they know this was going to happen? On the other side, too, is that, the prison break, as you rightly describe it, actually occurred. So those even those borders are artificial in that the real armistice, the 1949 armistice line, actually encompasses those kibbutzes where they went. That entire area that they call the Gaza envelope was actually I think it's about a total of close to 400 square kilometers. That was supposed to be part of the 1949 armistice line between, the newly created Israel and Gaza. But Israel decided they needed a buffer zone. And so they took that, and then they ended up colonizing that buffer zone. And so there was a new so-called artificial border. And when they broke out, that's where they broke out into a region that was supposed to be Gaza anyway. So, I mean, that's a side note, and maybe it's not important. It is important to me. It's important to Palestinians. Palestinians, most of them are actually their original villages are in those areas that are colonized right now. And the other point I want to make regarding civilians, everybody refers to the people at Nova as kids and civilians. And that's fine, even though they, by virtue of their age, they were all either active military or reserve military by virtue of their age, because there's mandatory conscription in Israel, as you know. And yet the 3,000 plus Lebanese are not considered civilians because they weren't in uniform either. I mean, the argument for why the people at Nova were civilians is because they were, they were out having fun, they were dancing, and they weren't in uniform. And yet the families and the people and the children even in who were mutilated or killed in Lebanon are considered Hezbollah, right? Even though they were with their families. So, I want to point that out too, because who gets to be called a civilian and who isn't.
Although I would say that, just in fair, I mean, I think that that's true of the media and the Western media, and certainly of most people. I mean, I even have friends who I'm shocked by this. Friends who have said, well, I don't like everything that Israel does, but I thought that thing with the pager attack was good. And I'm like, wait, Leon Panetta, like, he's not a peacenik and a bleeding heart liberal. Leon Panetta, former CIA heads, called this terrorism. But what I was going to say is that I think everyone on this, the three of us, and I'm sure almost everyone watching, unless people are hate watching, would agree that, don't have that double standard. But that double standard is, of course, I mean, baked into so much coverage, and it's so baked into it that we don't even question it. So I actually think it's good that you reminded people of that, Susan, because every time, for instance, every time this is described as a war, I think it was Norman Finkelstein who made this point, but I'm sure many have since, or maybe at the same time or before, but every time it's described as a war, it's kind of a PR boon for Israel, because that's what Israel wants to frame this as a war, as opposed to a genocide. And I know that both of you have called this a genocide. Yeah. Did you want to? Yeah, of course.
I just wanted to respond to two questions that Susan raised. One is, did the Israelis know about this? And number two, why were they so slow to react, and why did they react in such a ham-fisted way? It's very important, just to get started here, to remember that this is the second time in my lifetime that Israel has been the victim of a surprise attack. Two of the great surprise attacks in military history involved the Israelis. The first one was 1973, the Yom Kippur War. And the second one was here on October 7th. Now, in both cases, the Israelis were caught completely by surprise. I don't think in 1973, and from all the evidence I've seen here, that the Israelis saw this one coming. There's no question in both cases that there were people down at the lower levels who saw it coming. But as that information filtered up, it was disregarded. And I think what happened in both cases is that the Israelis had complete contempt. In 73, it was for the Egyptians. And on October 7th, it was for the Palestinians. They had complete contempt for their adversary, and they thought there was no way that their adversary would be foolish enough to attack them. So they were caught completely by surprise. And related to that, they didn't have contingency plans. It's not like they were expecting an attack any day, and they were just sitting back waiting for it to happen, and then they responded in a very rational, legal way. And I know a great deal from way back when about the 1973 war. And if you look at the initial Israeli responses to the Egyptian crossing of the canal, it was a total mess from an Israeli perspective. They were really caught with their pants down, and they were really flailing around. And it took them quite a while to get their bearings. And then, of course, Ariel Sharon crossed the Suez Canal, and they ended up defeating the Egyptians on the ground. But anyway, I would just say that looking at what happened on October 7th, the Israelis were caught by surprise. They didn't see it coming. And I think that their response was haphazard. And I think, by the way, that gets back to an earlier point I made, That's why they brought in all that firepower and just turned the firepower loose. That is invariably your first reaction when you get caught with your pants down like that. Bring in the firepower, turn the Apaches loose. And that is indeed what happened.
And you might be absolutely right. I mean, that's a plausible explanation, but I think we deserve an investigation to know for sure. I mean, because there have been some Israeli military personnel and analysts who were basically told to stand down, who to maybe, and it could have been that they just, like you said, they had such contempt for Palestinian agency that they were like, yeah, whatever, this is just, they're just doing whatever Palestinians do. That's also possible. I just think we need an investigation. And I love that you mentioned the 73 Yom Kippur War, because that was really the first time. I mean, it's what led to the Camp David Accords ultimately, because for the first time, Israel actually felt threatened, and they felt like, they can't just bully their way through against Egypt, and so they were forced to make peace with Egypt because of that, because they felt threatened.
Just Susan and Katie, just very quickly, after the 73 war, there was a commission that was set up to investigate what happened. As I remember, it was the Agronaut Commission report, which, as I remember, talked about the conception that the Israelis had in their head. And the conception was in part contempt for the Egyptians and the belief that there was no way they would ever launch an attack. But anyway, the Netanyahu government has gone to great lengths to make sure that there's not a commission set up to study what happened on October 7th, because we know who's going to be blamed for what happened, who's going to, bear the principal responsibility. We know where the buck stops in this case. And therefore, Netanyahu doesn't want that investigation. And in fact, he wants to continue this war, not only so there's no investigation set up, but so that he can produce a great victory. I believe this is all a mirage, by the way, but he wants to produce a great victory so that when the day comes that they have this national commission set up, something akin to the Agronaut Commission report, he can say, okay, I goofed then, but in the end, I produced this great victory for Israel.
It's interesting. I didn't think of this until just now, which is, it reminds me of something that you said once, John, when you were on Useful Idiots with me and Aaron Mate. And you've also done that show, Susan. But you mentioned how it was actually about the war in Ukraine. And I don't want to push the parallel too much because it's somewhat limited. But the idea, I kept saying, well, why do they keep fighting and keep fighting? And you were basically like, well, they need to, since they predicted they would win, and they haven't been winning, they need to keep fighting until they win, even though they're not going to win. And this is different because I think with Netanyahu, it's a much more kind of openly sinister, cynical thing. We can debate how many people actually thought that. I mean, what I'll say is that whether people were confident that Ukrainians would ever win or thought they wouldn't win, there was definitely a willingness to use them as cannon fodder in a proxy war. But I do see somewhat a parallel of kind of like running the clock so that they can have something to show for all the stuff that happened.
Yeah, one just quick point on this. If you listen to a lot of the media these days in Israel and even in the West, the mainstream media in the West, the argument is that Israel has won all these victories. It's in a terrific position now to stop the war because it's on top. I actually believe that's not true. I don't believe Israel's on top. And I could make, I believe, a very comprehensive and convincing argument that Israel is in real trouble militarily. And I think that Netanyahu understands this. And I think that Netanyahu understands that once the fighting stops, people will recognize that all of this killing, all of this death has not produced very much at all. And that, I think, incentivizes him to continue the war. That he can pull his chestnuts and Israel's chestnuts out of the fire. But I think he's delusional on that front.
Right. Well, can you expand? expand on, and then I'll throw it to you, Susan, unless you have something direct in response to this. I want to ask about the military failures that they've been creating.
Well, I mean, one of the things you hear, and you saw it in a piece in the Wall Street Journal today that was talking about Israel's great victories. And the only real problem is that the world hates them. But, you know, when they talk about Israeli military victories, they talked about the fact that both Hezbollah and Hamas have been decapitated. Well, they may have been decapitated, but they grew new heads back. When you decapitate any country, right, what happens is they move in the second echelon to replace the first echelon of leadership. And Hamas has new leaders. Hezbollah has new leaders. They have lots of fighters. And I believe that, you know, over 50% of the tunnels remain in Gaza. And the Hezbollah forces have lots of weapons. So I think the idea that Hezbollah and Hamas have been defeated, no. Furthermore, the principal goal of the Israelis, as we all know, in Gaza is not simply to defeat Hamas. The principal goal is to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza, to ethnically cleanse Gaza. This is the purpose of the genocide. The genocide is an instrument to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza. They failed. It's not going to happen. And then if you go to Iran, we're talking these days about them attacking Iran again. There are all sorts of people who believe they're going to attack Iran in the fall. Well, they attacked Iran in the 12-day war in June of this year. If that war was a success, they wouldn't be attacking Iran again. But the fact is the attacks against Iran failed. They did not eliminate Iran's nuclear program, especially their nuclear enrichment program. And furthermore, their goal of Syrianizing Iran, breaking it apart, failed. Furthermore, you get inside Israel and you look at the IDF. The IDF is having huge problems. This is why the chief of staff was opposed to the operation in Gaza City. They have a significant problem with PTSD. They have a significant problem with suicides. They have a significant problem with reservists not reporting for duty. And then to take it a step further, they're heavily dependent on the United States. There's a report that came out today that said that since October 7th, 2 years ago, we, the Americans, have given them over $30 billion, right? We've given them over $30 billion in assistance. I think about 21 of that is in direct assistance, and about 10 of that, if my memory is correct, is that the wars that we've been fighting and all the expenditures that go into those wars for Israel. So they're more dependent than ever on the United States. This is a terribly unhealthy situation from Israel's point of view. Israel always prided itself on the fact that it fought its own wars. It can't fight its own wars now. Take away the United States, it's a much weaker state. And then my final point is look at the centrifugal forces inside that society. It's not just between the ultra-Orthodox and the rest. It's also the fact that you have these wicked political cleavages in the body politic. So I think that, you know, Israel has not done well for itself, that it's in much worse shape today than it was in October 7th, than it was on October 7th.
And Susan, what are your thoughts on this? Either that direct question about the military failure or just how you perceive Israel's strength or weakness right now.
Well, I mean, we just heard Benjamin Netanyahu go on and make continuing to make a case for attacking Iran. He wants the United States to attack Iran. And actually, the fact that he's still harping on that and still trying to drag the United States into a war with Iran, that itself tells you that he's racked up no victories, right? He needs an expanded war. He wants, it seems, a regional war. He's doing everything to provoke his neighbors. And it's only because of the restraint, frankly, of his neighbors that this has not exploded into something much bigger. Of course, I agree with everything John said regarding the internal implosion. We have always said Palestinians, that the only thing that really holds Israeli society together is their contempt for us. I mean, they have, it is a society that's cobbled together from all over the world into a relatively tiny landmass. They have nothing in common. They have, I mean, you know, culturally, ethnically, historically, and until recently, linguistically, these were people of disparate backgrounds who had nothing in common. And then you had the Ashkenazi Jews who came with, you know, with European racism and contempt for, you know, what they called the Orient. And so you already have these internal hatreds and divisions and racisms and hierarchies. And then, of course, Palestinians are at the lowest rung, and everybody, I mean, it's the fear of the Palestinian or of the irrational Arab that they have planted in their young, and that holds them together. And so I think, but that's not working anymore. And yeah, it's hard work committing genocide. This kind of brings us to another point. I know, Katie, you and I have talked about this, is the actual number, the actual death toll. You know, the official numbers are demonstrably a gross underestimation of the true death toll. And they have arrived at this carnage through just extreme violence that would corrode any society. I mean, in so many ways, I find Israel soulless. You know, we have never been surprised by the amount of violence that they inflict on us, but I have to say, it has come as a surprise, and a very bitter surprise, to see the level of sadism on nearly the entirety of the Israeli society, that they can look at our children utterly mutilated, torn, burned alive, and they see that as a cause of celebration, as they see that as images to set to music and post on TikTok. It is, you know, there was a point in my life, and I think in the lives of all Palestinians, where we conceded to, you know, okay, this is our reality. We have to find a way to live with them. I think we were all willing to do that. But I personally, after seeing what we have seen, the level of sadism, I mean, I know that I speak for a lot of Palestinians. Like, how do we live with these monsters? How can we ever consider them neighbors and feel safe next to them? And you know, I don't know where to go with that. And I think that's the part that is unprecedented in human history. There have been atrocities throughout history. There have been genocides that were horrific and brutal and violent. But I don't think there's ever been a moment where the entire society or in the entire world saw and heard, and in some cases smelled, you know, what was happening in the true face of genocide, and actually not only just looked away, but supported and cheered it on. I think that that is the part for me as a Palestinian that is something I will never get over. And I know all Palestinians. I mean, the level of betrayal that we all feel, the nothingness that the world has made us feel like is really something. It's a hell of a thing. It really is. And you know, the flip side of that is the beauty of the people who are pouring into the streets, like we saw in Italy, like we saw in Amsterdam, and the masses of people who are refusing to obey.
Well,
You know, just on the glee
Yeah.
that the Israelis take in killing Palestinians, and the fact that they post these horrific videos on the internet. If you look at the Nazi Holocaust, right, the Germans actually went to great lengths to hide what they were doing. It's quite remarkable. The record of what happened is incomplete in all sorts of ways, because they either didn't keep good records or they tried to destroy the records.
Right.
They were not interested in advertising what they were doing. That's to take nothing away from what they did. Oh my God. But the fact is that they did not take a glee in it. And the Israelis, they clearly take a glee in doing these horrible things, which is, I find hard to understand. But nevertheless, it is what it is.
It really does remind me of, and I haven't come up for the appropriate word for this, but there's the Hannah Arendt banality of evil discussion about Germany, and it's in many ways it's the opposite here, right? It's like the glee of evil. I don't know. It's the like spectacle of evil. It's the opposite of the kind of mechanized, sanitized version of it. There is some of that also, of course, but there really is an element of celebratory violence and far from hidden violence, live streamed violence, which I do think is notably different. And I don't know what comes next in that situation. And what's so weird is that I think it's so incongruous. I mean, the two of you are not naive, obviously, far from it. But a lot of people are like, wait, bad guys, the US is on the other side of, right? The Nazis were bad. The US fought the Nazis. But this time we're seeing genocide, bad guys, except the US is on their side. So I think that, that's another thing that probably, I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine what it's like being Palestinian. But I, as someone who's not Palestinian, I'm always enraged by the way that the dehumanization of Palestinians is just so packaged into US foreign policy. But like in an overt way, not in a hidden way, speaking of hidden versus in the open. And that really is unbelievable to see. It's not, I always joke that like Saudi Arabia is America's like side piece or mistress, and Israel is America's like proper wife. And that in some ways is like one of the worst parts of it, right? Is that this is a sanctified relationship, right? A relationship that the West is proud of, as opposed to a relationship that they hide.
I think there's no question about that. It is important to emphasize, though, that public opinion in the West is a lot different than what the governments are doing and saying. If you look at the Democratic Party, for example, it was completely out of sync with what Joe Biden was doing. And even in the Republican Party now, but just in the body populace in the United States and all across Europe, if people really had influence, the genocide would stop. There's no question about that. But the fact is that the elites are insulated from the public. The elites can do whatever they want. And if you look at someone like Donald Trump, the Israelis have him wrapped around their little finger. It's really quite remarkable. Trump has to know, he just has to know that what's going on is a genocide, or if it's not a genocide, it's mass murder, and that there's something wrong with that. And the fact that he's not shut it down is really quite remarkable, and has made hardly any moves to do that. Shocking. But nevertheless, I think, as you know, my opinion is that this is the hold that the lobby has on our politicians. They basically support Israel unconditionally.
I think it's shocking to everybody around the world, and it's not just Donald Trump. I mean, it's been every president before him, and the one president, George Bush Sr., who very in a very small way stepped out of line with that $10 billion loan guarantee. Of course, he was duly pulled out of office, but yeah, I mean, it's really. I mean, I heard your interview recently on Tucker Carlson, which is excellent, by the way. But you both talk about, and Tucker in particularly, like how is it that this tiny population, tiny geographic area is able to so profoundly manipulate a country like the United States of 300 million people, and a almost a continent-sized country? It is really mind-boggling, truly.
I would just say, though, just on all the previous presidents There's no question that almost all of them, really starting with Harry Truman, supported Israel strongly and more strongly with the passage of time. But we're not talking about just supporting Israel here. We're not talking about supporting Israel when it locks Palestinians into Gaza or creates cantons on the West Bank. We're talking about a genocide. As I don't have to tell you, we're talking about Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan and Samantha Power and Tony Blinken. These are card-carrying liberals supporting a genocide. They're all complicit in a genocide. I talked about the $30+ billion before. Everybody knows that there's no way that Israel could execute this genocide without American support. We're complicit. And it started under Joe Biden. And I find it truly remarkable that liberal Democrats, somebody like Samantha Power, who wrote about genocide, condemned genocide, these people all participated. If we had Nuremberg II, they'd all be found guilty. And then, of course, Trump comes in and he and his advisors follow in the footsteps of the Biden administration. It's truly remarkable. And these people just have to know that what's going on here is profoundly wrong from a moral point of view. You're just not supposed to do this. Nevertheless, they support Israel and unconditionally. And it's in large part because of the lobby. And the fact is, Susan, that the American political system is set up in ways that interest groups have enormous power. It's not just the Israel lobby. I believe the Israel lobby is the most powerful interest group we've ever had. But, the National Rifle Association, the Cuban lobby, the AFL-CIO. I mean, there are lots of lobbies that have inordinate amounts of power, and they push American policy in ways that I think are not good from the perspective of the national interest. But the system is set up so that you can do that. And most of these Zionists, and this includes Christian Zionists as well as Jewish Zionists, are very well organized. They have lots of money. They have lots of influence in the media. And they've been at this game for a long time. So they're really good. As Steve Walt and I have said on numerous occasions, you just can't help but respect how powerful and effective the Israel lobby is, because it is. The end result is disastrous, but nevertheless, they're just highly effective. They're deeply dedicated to the cause, very smart people, very committed people, and they're operating in a political system that allows interest groups to wield great power.
What motivates this? Please do hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show to get this full discussion. But also giving it a thumbs up is just a free way to spread the word and help the algorithm and fight back against suppression. But what motivates people what motivates these lobbies? Like, is it with the Christian Zionists, it's the rapture? With the Jewish Zionists, I mean, there are lots of Jewish Zionists who are not at all religious. So what motivates these people? All right. That was amazing. I did not think that we were going to have them on together the whole time. I mean, I wasn't against it. I just thought it was going to be Susan, a little bit of overlap, and then John Mearsheimer. And I thought we'd have a little bit with the Palestinian doctor on the Flotilla. Sorry, this hearing keeps flipping. A little bit Palestinian Doctor Flotilla, but as you saw, that turned into a lot because there were these amazing stories to tell. And the Flotilla is certainly part of it, but just the stories they told about the doctor were incredible, very painful to hear. We obviously will not be paywalling any of the interview with that doctor, the great Dr. Dhiaa Daoud, excuse me, Dr. Daoud won't be paywalled at all. We will be, if you're watching this now, you're so in luck because you got to see this full stream over 2 hours. But if you're watching this later and you want to see the full interview with Susan Abulhawa and John Mearsheimer, where we talk about things like what? Brad, what are some of the things that are going, come on down, Brad, come on down. What are some of the things that are going to go into the Patreon?
Oh boy. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what is going to be.
And
included
Epstein.
in it, but yeah, the Epstein, and I mean the discussion between Professor Mearsheimer and Susan just regarding
So much.
history and the public perception shifts. I could listen to them indefinitely.
It's really good. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're definitely going to want to become Patreon supporters if you're not already at patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. Also, I got to say, I'll ignore the comments, but guys, you can come at me when I say I don't think it's Judaism and accuse me of being an ethno-narcissist or whatever. I don't care about it at all. I did not go to Hebrew school. I was not bat mitzvahed. I'm a little bit of a religion snob in general. So when I say that I don't think the Talmud is the cause for genocide, it's not because I'm a fan of what's written in there. It's because the early Zionists were atheists. That's just one reason. It's because you can use the Old Testament and the New Testament to justify slavery or fight against slavery, as we've seen. It's because there are Catholics who are leftists, Marxists, and there are Catholics who are reactionary. So that is all I'm saying. It's not about
and the majority of Zionists aren't.
Judaism. Also, good luck. Oh, the majority of Zionists are not. Thank you. Are not Jewish.
Yeah.
They're Christian. But also, if you think it's about Judaism, the book, then that's a lot harder, a lot heavier of a lift, because I really think you are like, honestly, even if I thought it was, well, whatever, it's a different question. Anyway, I don't care about your thoughts on the Talmud. Someone just said the Talmud is disgusting. If you think that the reason that what's happening in Palestine is because of the Talmud, I just think you're wrong. And
They should go back and watch the previous 2+ years of our discussions on
and
this.
again, I mean, I'm not like, I have no skin in the game. I'm happy that there are religious Jews who are speaking out, because I want every person, I want there to be representation of anti-Zionism in every group. I just think that it's a dangerous thing to do, because it's not you're not going to get people to drop a religion necessarily.
It's an overly simplistic and frankly just dangerous when you're starting to pit,
Yes. And look, this is my orientation. And I was trying to think of a good person to debate John Mearsheimer on this. So Noah Linden, the Talmud, the reason is because America and Britain carefully engineered and Israel to be what it is. I think that's true. Would be a great person to debate John Mearsheimer would be Tony Greenstein, who says basically, if the lobby stopped existing today, what is the line? It's not that if it stopped, I think maybe it's if Jews stop supporting Israel, nothing would change in terms of the policy. And he calls Jews the moral alibi of imperialism. Anyway, but I just hate when people are.
No, I understand how it can. I mean, thankfully, it's still unknown as to my level of Jewishness, and so it's not. It rolls off my back a little bit easier, but
well, mine too, because I really don't. And then if I say something critical of Judaism, all the religious Zionists get on me as you're not a real Jew. Look, I'm not religious. We can debate Jewish identity. And it's not because I'm a narcissist or like navel gazing. This is actually an important discussion that Jews have to have. And maybe we'll behind closed doors or whatever. But it is, there's Dan Cohen is on one side of this issue. His thing is like Jews have nothing to do with Zionism. And then Alon Mizrahi, who I've had on Useful Idiots, who I would love to have on this show, he's on the other side, which is like, yeah, Judaism is Zionism, and we have to like reject Judaism.
I think, to me at least, the reason why I would find it bothersome, and why it would get under my skin, some comments like that, is mainly like, if it didn't have the real world ramifications that those comments eventually lead to, I guess I wouldn't care. People can believe whatever they want, but when we see what comes of that sort of narrative or those sorts of talking points, it's the harm is what bothers me the most.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's just not good for I would say it's not good for the cause.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it is funny, because if only people knew what I grew up with in terms of like Judaism, religion, it was not a lot of respect for it. Maybe I can cut it out, but I have some ideas about some really good people to have on. It's like a pet peeve of mine when people don't like, I want people to disagree with me for the right reasons. And it's always a pet peeve of mine. It's like, you know, someone ever, like if someone thinks you're lying and you're just not lying and it's very frustrating, it's kind of like that.
Yeah. And I would just, and not to say that this is the case, but I think I may have mentioned it either last week or the week before. Always just keep in the back of your mind, unfortunately, there is always the possibility, whether it's on YouTube or Twitter or whatever, that these comments could literally just be, you know,
Right.
Elon Levy with 500 cell phones, you know, posting blah, blah, blah. But, you know,
Yeah. Anyway.
no, but I really appreciated, I mean, and the doctor,
Oh my God.
it's incredible that he was able to join us for literally from the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
And yeah, being able to get out. I know it may not have been the best connection at all times, but it's so important to, you know, if the larger media outlets aren't going to give attention to, you know, what these people are saying, it's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. Excuse me. I got to go to sleep because I'm sick.
And drink water.
I got to drink water because I'm sick also.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Phantomus Fountain, for the clips. Thank you. As always, Andrew. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, John Mearsheimer. Thank you, Susan Abulhawa. And thank you, Dr. Daoud, for coming on the show. And we will see you next week. And again, if you aren't already Patreon supporters, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And it's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Bye, everyone.
Okay, I'm back.